All right. Let's build our player pool for DK this week. Um, did find it tricky feeling extremely good about good quarterback spot. Based on the way it's kind of set up this week, I think I'm just going to end up buying into some double stacks and playing a lot of that. We'll talk soon about exactly who that double stack is. But I'm gonna have a couple variations that I'm gonna play off of for most tournament stuff. Um, Slightly concerned with my belief in it, given my track record of not liking this particular player. But anyway, let's start out with the core plays at the quarterback position. If, and this is a big if, based on health, if Cade Klubnik's healthy at 7,500, facing off with a Duke defense that is decent at stopping the run and can't stop the pass for their life, even with the banged up ankle, I'm going to have a hard time not making him the top play at the quarterback position on this slate. Relative value wise, he's very similarly projected to Fernando Mendoza, Sawyer Robertson, and the other top end quarterbacks. He's better than most of the top end quarterbacks from a projection standpoint. So to get him at 7,500 in this particular matchup, it is the lowest price we've had on him all season. And he realistically should be in the 9K range in this spot, given the relative context of the other quarterbacks on this slate. He's one of the best values on the slate, gets a great matchup. I think he can throw for 300 yards, even without Bryant Wesco. He's got two great stack partners. I could argue that he has three based on the value that is presented from his third option with Bryant Wesco now out. So I'm going to be heavily invested in Klubnik so long as he's a go. I'm going to build a good bit of Klubnik, but that's the beauty of me building the big stuff on Saturday morning, is I can kind of switch and build that stuff that morning and get to it. The lower dollar 20 max stuff, I'm going to build towards Klubnik, but I'll have optionality to switch out of that should I so choose. So he will be a core play, the best play, should he be active this week. Core play number 2 is in that same game. I talk about his pass rate over expectation. It's Darian Mensah. So at 6,400, he's got a good price. Clemson, not a perfect matchup, but a matchup nonetheless that if Klubnik's healthy, I'm extremely interested in him because he should throw for 300 yards and hopefully multiple touchdowns, considering he has at least 2 touchdowns in every game this season. I would expect the floor to be somewhere in this 21-point range, which I do not mind at 6,400 because we do kind of lack rushing quarterbacks on this slate. So I'll prefer to pay down for Mensa because if you think about it, right, Mendoza has minimal rushing upside, but his volume is kind of is good. It's just risky with the Maryland aspect of that game. Sawyer Robertson, very good play as well, but he's not running. So it's all based on him throwing for 300 plus, which he probably will. He's more likely to do so. But is he $2,700 more likely to throw for 300 than Darian Mensah? No, I don't think so. So I'm in on Mensah. He's definitely in the core category for me. But the guy that I am building uncomfortably to an extent, a lot of teams around. You would think it's Bayron Morton. It's not. I'm going to build a lot of teams around Carson Beck, and I think it's going to be on both sides. He's not a runner. We're not going to get very much from him from the rush aspect. SMU is extremely a pass funnel defense. They're good against the run, terrible against the pass. So there's a legitimate chance of 300 yards and 4 touchdowns in this spot. And he is a guy that I am going to end up far too overexposed to, considering my belief in his actual real life long term capability. But SMU is going to struggle to get after the passer. And if he has a clean pocket, which he will in this spot, he's very good. Anytime he operates from a not so clean pocket, i.e., Louisville, you get 4 interceptions. So the teams that are able to kind of get after him, Florida and Miami, are going to propose just extreme difficulty for him. He's not necessarily ever going to be, in my opinion, an NFL style quarterback. We just saw him in a Georgia offense with 2 all pro NFL caliber pass catchers and an all pro esque offensive line. And that's what vaulted him up into the status that he became. And then the following year, when those things went away, he struggled mightily at Georgia. We've seen it within this year. Clean pocket against Notre Dame, pretty solid. Clean pocket all the way through. Then no clean pocket against Florida. FSU couldn't get after the passer. Next thing you know, he throws for 4 touchdowns. Not clean pocket, and then weather game against Stanford. So I'll discount that one. But otherwise, it's been a fairly consistent trend. And SMU does not have the bodies along the defensive line to be able to rush the passer with the quality of offensive line that Miami possesses. And then I expect that they're going to have to get it through the air. And he has 2 very good weapons. Top GPP play for me, maybe it technically should be Carson Beck. I don't know what his relative ownership is going to be. I'll be interested in asking the chat kind of what the projected ownership is on the Mensa Beck Klubnik category. I think Bayron Morton's going to go underowned. I think everybody's going to want to play that through the run game. Bayron double stacks, I'm interested in. Kansas State's going to be good enough to keep them in the game. Bayron's coming back off of injury. No Will Hammond to soak up those reps. I think he has a longer leash now. Now, granted, you could say he's going to have a shorter leash because if they get out just enough, then Mitch Griffiths will come in because they need Bayron to be healthy for the rest of the season. I doubt we see Bayron run the ball at all the rest of the year. That's why all these guys down here at the bottom are more yardage and touchdown dependent, but Bayron can be extremely efficient with his passing and still get where we want him to go with 20 plus points. The only 2 games he has not been particularly good in this season were the games he did not finish, which is Utah and Kansas. So basically, if he finishes this game, he's going to finish with more than 20 points, making him a viable play at this $6,600 price tag. The concern is, does he finish the game? Rest of the player pool, very obvious that we're going to be in on Mendoza. He's worth taking shots on. He's got good stack partners. He plays well. It's just a variance question, right? And I think you need to have exposure for the simple fact that they're going to put up a ton of points on Maryland. It's just, does the ball bounce the way it did against UCLA with the Elijah Surratt situation? Does it bounce the way it did against Iowa? I doubt that it's as low scoring as this. They're going to put up a big number of points, and it's probably going to go through Mendoza. So I prefer him slightly to Sawyer Robertson, but there is risk of the blowout situation. And that if they score on defense once, score on special teams once, and then next thing you know, they've got this big lead and maybe their running backs score 2 touchdowns and now Mendoza's left out to dry. It's a risk. It happens. Sawyer Robertson, 100% needs to be in the pool, has not run the ball. It drives me insane, but I would expect him to throw for 300 yards and multiple scores in this one. The problem for me is I will play Sawyer Robertson. I'll play some of him. But I don't know that he's any different than Klubnik, Mensa, Morton, and Beck, which are all cheaper by a lot. So what are you really getting? I think the likelihood that he throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns is higher than them. But is that likelihood $2,000 DK more? I don't think it is. Good morning, Myron. It just feels like I'm paying up for a high floor, not a high ceiling. Mendoza's got a higher ceiling. I prefer Mendoza. I like Sawyer. I think Sawyer's a good play, and Sawyer can bury you with the 393 and 4 game. He could be hyper efficient and get to 41 and bury you. So you're going to want exposure. And I don't think he hurts you. I just don't know that he's the optimal play for the price tag. Maybe he ends up being it just because it gets you off of a high owned, higher price play that people don't want, right? But he's definitely going to be a guy that I'm going to pair with some of those Beck and Mensa stacks, maybe even Klubnik. I'll try to wiggle them in there for sure. Final guy in the pool for me at quarterback that I have interest in. I don't know what to make of it, but I'm kind of interested in Avery Johnson. He's the one extreme runner out of the bunch that I feel good about this week. Because there's 0% chance I'm playing Kyron Drones against Louisville. You could make an argument for Gunnar Stockton. I had him in the pool, kind of took him out late. Chandler Morris is probably priced too high, though, given how he's been playing. Maybe he gets there, but there's a lack of running quarterback on this slate. And I'm not playing Jeff Sims. If you play Jeff Sims, then good luck to you. But there's 3 rules that I have. One is don't play Cam Fancher. 2 is don't play Jeff Sims. And 3 is there's one other guy that I refuse to play at quarterback. And they're like the Bible verses at this point until he's finally out of the college football. Avery Johnson playing great his last 3 games. Minimum of 3 touchdowns in each. Actually, no, he didn't get it in a 4th one. But yeah, so 22 points or more each of his last 4, 30 points in there. He's not been playing Texas Tech's defense. That's the scary part, right? Texas Tech's defense is very, very good. So I'm willing to take shots. I just am going to limit my shots. The rushing floor is there. The ceiling is fully there. It's just you could easily see this TCU line, 198 yards passing, 29 yards rushing. I just don't think he could get to that 3 touchdowns. Maybe he gets 1. Now you're looking at a 14. And I think that's a legitimate possibility. So I would prefer to play the other guys in this range, either paying up for Klubnik or paying down for the Morton, Mensa, Beck range. But Avery Johnson will be on my 20. He'll probably be on 2 or 3. I'd say 10 to 15% would be my guess. That would be the relative range that I'm looking at there. By comparison, I think Beck's going to be on probably 40%. If I was to guess, I've been building Beck teams this morning, so that's kind of where I'm hyper afraid that I'm too in on Beck, I'll say. Looking at the running back position, core plays. Does a core play ever start with anybody that's not named Jeremiah Love? I don't think so. Minimum of 20 points. And you can say that you're not going to get the relative points per dollar value out of Love unless he scores the 30, 40 points. Granted, he's done that in 4 of his last 6, and the other 2 were in the 20s. But even then, sometimes it's the relative combination of the floor that he gets you plus the salary you spent elsewhere that gets you that ceiling, because his 20 might be what you needed given that you played something else. You're not leaving 5K on the floor. I mean, or let's just say, relative speaking, $3,000, $2,000, $3,000 DK dollars on the table. So you're going to keep jamming. And if you jam, it's going to give you different relative ways to play it. So I do like Love a ton. BC, not exactly explosive. He's caught the ball extremely well. He's run the ball insane. He's on a Heisman run. I kind of hope he gets there. I have 40-1 tickets on him. I would prefer Haynes King, given that I have 75-1 ticket on him. But we'll see. Other core plays. So we talked about Jamari Taylor the other day, and I spent all morning trying to decide Jamari Taylor as a core play. He's the fourth core play. Or Kendrick Raphael. And I think I'm going to lean Raphael. Neither one of them's hyper efficient running the ball. Taylor has the better pass catching volume. Cal got exposed like crazy against Virginia Tech last week. I looked at both teams' box scores against every opponent and tried to figure out how good each of these guys was. Tried to figure out how good each of the opponents were. I'm harboring some ill will for Kendrick Raphael because I played him on that night slate against San Diego State, and I was hyper disappointed in 11 carries and 27 yards. And I'm trying to forget that. I think the ceiling on Raphael's higher. I like the floor on Taylor because Taylor's got so much better of a pass catching role. I don't think UVA is as bad against the run as Cal is. But at the same time, we're traveling cross country. And UVA's kind of been a dumpster fire of late. Granted, they're winning games, but it's not pretty. Raphael projects slightly better for me than Jamari Taylor. So I'm going to put Raphael as a core play over Jamari Taylor. But we're going to talk about Jamari Taylor here in a minute. Last core play, and this is kind of me just flag planting. I've watched too many Baylor games this year not to do this. I'm going to put Miles Montgomery as a core play. It's not pretty, I'll be honest. But at least he's catching a ball here and there. I'll take the bonus points. Oh, yeah. I agree. I agree, Myron, that he's one of the few bell cows. But I would say that Raphael is. So let's look at this, right? We'll talk about it. So Taylor is getting a ton of work, but his touch counts are, I would call it in the 20 to 25 range per week. I think that's a fair assessment. So his relative averaging, let's say, has been pretty standard, like in that 3 to 4 range. Not really explosive. His touchdown equity is lower, and we know that Chandler Morris will run it in around the goal line. So that's somewhat of a concern. And then if I take the 1,100 discount or the 1,000 discount on Raphael, his touch counts are similar. Like his role is not much different to Jamari Taylor. He just has more of a goal line role, and his explosiveness is extremely limited, just like Taylor. I don't know that there's a very big difference between Raphael and Taylor. That's what I've been wrestling with. I almost put Taylor as a core play. I was there, and I was there coming into the week. And I ended up on Raphael. And I think I'm going to split it. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to have plenty of Taylor. It's just, the role on Raphael is not much different. And I also don't think UVA is particularly good. I don't think Cal is particularly good. And I don't like teams traveling 3 time zones. I hate that. That is one of my number one things. I just do not like it. Every once in a while, it's going to burn you, a.k.a. Oregon absolutely torched Rutgers. But we're talking Oregon and Rutgers. We're not talking UVA and Cal are similar builds for sure. They're not too dissimilar of teams. So Miles Montgomery, former Cincinnati Bearcat, not uber explosive. I would say that this backfield profiles extremely similar to the Cincinnati backfield. You have your Tyree Walker, that's Miles Montgomery, and you have your Evan Pryor, that's Jaden Nixon. Now, Jaden Nixon's only going to get 6 touches, so I can't particularly want to boost his relative value, knowing that Miles Montgomery could get 15 to 20 touches in this game. Baylor's just atrocious on defense. Oh, I hope so, Myron. Well, I don't. I actually, I say I hope so, but I don't hope we get a JMU UVA bowl game for the simple fact that that means we didn't make the college football playoff. I'd rather just get blown out by somebody in the first round of the college football playoff than play in that bowl game uh, against UVA and win it, because we've already beaten UVA recently. I think we've won. So the stat is that James Madison has won 14 straight games against teams in the state of Virginia, and that includes Virginia, Virginia Tech, Liberty, Old Dominion. It's literally the who's who of the entire state. Now UVA actually has to beat Virginia Tech for once, which I will be rooting for because, as I say, I'm a noted UVA closet fan. I do root for them every single year against Virginia Tech, only for the heartbreak to hit. It's more fun for me because my cousin played offensive line at Virginia Tech under Frank Beamer. So I like to mess with him, particularly when James Madison beats them, because I prefer that. But yeah, so I would say Miles Montgomery, he's got 100 yards capability. I think he does find the end zone in this game. I think the floor's good. He's one of my favorite plays in the 5K range. It's very difficult to find value this week. So I'm going to end up leaning on Montgomery a good bit in this range because the matchup's just so good. GPP options, I think Montgomery ends up being popular. So my natural pivot off of Montgomery is going to be to go to Roman Hemby. Now, maybe ownership goes to Hemby. I don't think he's necessarily the touch monster, and there is a high probability that things just don't fall his way. But knowing Signetti the way that I do, he loves a good narrative, and he loves to feed guys against their former teams, and he loves to be able to kind of stick it to somebody. What better way to stick it than to have Roman Hemby score a few times? So, as much as I like Montgomery, I'm going to be pivoting to Hemby a good bit in those spots. I will enjoy that because I think he can get this 22, 23 point range. Very similar. I think the upside's similar to Montgomery. I don't know that there's much difference between the two, so I'm going to try to split those 50-50 where I can in order to have exposure to each. I think both are great plays. Hemby, does he have the point to prove? There is the risk. There is always going to be risk with Hemby, though. Is this Michigan State game, right? They blow them out quick, and maybe it goes through the pass game. Just like we got torched last week on the Elijah Surratt situation, maybe he gets the 6 carries, 11 yards, and 1 touchdown, so he gets him his touchdown, but it ends up being 10 points, That's the scary part. And then Montgomery just blows him out because Montgomery has 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's highly possible. So I think you need a split exposure between these two, but both are extremely good plays in this spot. I don't know whether Hemby or Montgomery comes in with more ownership. That's something that I'll ask the chat on Saturday, and we'll get some better idea. I actually am curious though as to where the ownership's going to end up at. All right, second core play or GPP play this week. I think Isaac Brown goes under owned. To Myron's point, I think a lot of the ownership ends up going to Jamari Taylor or drops down into that 6K range, or they go all the way up to Jeremiah Love. Everybody knows that he was healthy the first 2 weeks of the season. Yes, he ripped off a 70-yarder against JMU. Hey, reminder from the G5 playoff spot. Louisville's ranked in the top 20, and we lost by 14. And that Louisville team that was a 7-point game until Isaac Brown ripped off a 78-yarder with 3 minutes left in that game. So, not saying, just saying. Should be the G5 team. Forget all that Boise nonsense because that's ridiculous. They stink this year. He then got hurt against Bowling Green. Played hurt up through here. He now got healthy against Miami. And I expect he's getting healthier and healthier, and we're starting to see it. So the explosiveness is starting to come back. Averaged 15 yards a tote last week against BC. I think he's a great play against Virginia Tech team that just gave it up to Kendrick Raphael on the ground. Only 70 yards, but multiple 3 touchdowns. Virginia Tech not very good against the run. I have no issues picking on them with Isaac Brown. I think it's a fun way to get off of Jamari Taylor or out of this range, personally. So rest of the pool, Jamari Taylor's obviously in it. We talked about it. He's the fourth core guy. I do love the role. And a lot of these guys that are going to be the outside the top tier plays are all going to be based on the fact that they have big roles. I want the touch count. And Jamari Taylor has the touch count. He can easily have a ceiling game. There is, we just talked about, though, how I just prefer Raphael to an extent in that spot. I do like Isaac Brown a good bit in that spot, too. Raleek Brown, similar situation. If Jeff Sims is the quarterback, which he is, Sam Leavitt now out. I remember Iowa State kind of missing some secondary pieces, but I don't know that really matters. Love the role here for Raleek. He's going to get you about 20 touches in this spot. Iowa State better against the run than the pass, but does that really matter when Jeff Sims is your quarterback? Because the forward pass does not exist, especially when you don't have Jordan Tyson. The last game that Leavitt did not play and Sims started was this Utah game. Now, Utah's tougher run defense by a little bit. He got 14 carries, 2 catches, 67 yards. I don't know how much Raleek Brown I'm going to end up on. I don't love it. I'm interested because of the role, but I don't know that the ceiling's where I want it to be given this. Yeah, keeping Bob Chesney's could be a tough task, my friend. I hope he stays. I am not disappointed if he goes somewhere that's good. I will be disappointed if he went to like a Syracuse or a mid-level ACC team or a bottom feeder ACC team like Virginia Tech that has no money. When clearly there's better teams. Now, I would say UVA has the potential to open up. Tony Elliott could get some looks at a number of places. Granted, I wouldn't do it if I was those places because Tony Elliott, they're operating on a schedule and just a series of luck box victories. Jaden Baugh falls right into that bell cow category with 20 touches. He can get to 30. And yes, Georgia, very difficult matchup. Don't get me wrong. But I love the talent here. It's the talent that I'm going to buy into. And this is one of the best running backs in the country from a talent perspective for me. So even in these difficult matchups, he gets so much work. He's not going to kill you, but he has the capability at any given time to pop off multiple touchdowns. He has the capability at any given time to get you 5-7 catches. So I love this kid. I think he's a great player. I will have exposure to him. I don't love this Florida-Georgia game from a fantasy standpoint, but I do have minimal interest in the fact that Baugh is an absolute horse in this backfield. All right, else in the pool. And I think I'm going to end up on this play more than I should because he's cheap enough. Jacoby Williams is risky. And you notice I didn't talk about Cameron Dickey. Cameron Dickey's priced too high for me. He had that one monster game. I don't love the role. With Bayron not being mobile, I do think you can see that Jacoby Williams catches more passes. So I like him as a stack partner with Bayron as a part of a triple stack. And I love playing him because of his explosiveness. He needs one touch to take it to the house. So I like the ceiling here a ton because his ceiling is as high as Cameron Dickey at 2,500 less. And I love the ceiling relative to the guys around him. If I cannot get to Montgomery and Hemby, I will be on Williams. And there's a lot of teams that I've built that have Jacoby Williams because I think the ceiling and floor combination, he was banged up in these 2 games. The rest of the time, he's been pretty healthy. I'm leaning on the fact that he's healthy again, especially after he returned the opening kickoff here. He can score in so many ways. He can return a kickoff. He can catch a touchdown. He can run a long one in. Do I think he gets 20 carries? No. But I think he gets 10 carries and 3 to 5 catches. And that's all I'm really going to need in order for him to get where I want him to be, especially if he's explosive. The one injury situation to monitor, just keep an eye on it. They're saying Bryson Washington. So here's the deal. 0.0%. They're saying he's good to go, yada, 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 yada. If he was announced out, and let's just say something cropped up for some strange reason, then Michael Turner's a very clear top option for that backfield at 4,800, and he's about as low as I'm willing to go. I don't hate the play even with him in. I just much prefer getting the 500 to go to Jacoby Williams, and you should be able to do that without issue. All right, wide receiver. So this is where things get interesting. There is a lot of very good wide receiver plays this week. A lot of very good wide receiver plays across the board. Jordan Tyson probably not going to play. Top wide receiver play on the slate for me, and it's not particularly close in my opinion. It's Chris Bell. He disappointed me last week. Point blank. One could argue he is the best play on the slate. Period. He projects extremely close to Jeremiah Love at 1,400 less. So from a flex perspective, I think you're going to end up wanting mostly wide receivers. I don't think it's necessarily a 3 running back week. I think the wide receivers have enough guys that project extremely well. He's just as likely to get you 30 points as Jeremiah Love is. Gets a ton of targets. Virginia Tech, like I said, not good defense. And a Braum wide receiver 1 is a guy that I want in my lineups a good bit. So I will have some Chris Bell exposure. Is it nerve-wracking that Isaac Brown is now starting to heat up? Yes, because it can either flip to Bell or Brown, but I am going to want some Chris Bell because both can get it any given week. Second core play, I mentioned Carson Beck being a core play. Malachi Toney is going to be a core play right behind him. Toney's the clear option, top option in this offense. SMU can't stop a nosebleed in the pass game, and this man is absolute electric factory when he's kept playing wide receiver. I still can't get over watching that Florida State game and him just kind of pulling away from athletes that are out on that field. I think we get 100 yards and a touchdown out of Toney, and at 5,900, it is an insane bargain. Now, does this play hinge on Cade Klubnik? Nope, sure doesn't. Because TJ Moore is now the top option in this offense. He caught 100. Look at this. This is why we're picking on SMU, folks. TJ Moore with Chris Vezina at quarterback. Not even Cade Klubnik. Had 5 catches for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns and 32 points. What do you think Malachi Toney's going to do with Carson Beck back there? Like Chris Vezina was carving up SMU. I'm fairly certain last week we had Robbie Ashford even doing damage to him. So it's just insane. SMU struggles with wide receivers. So that's our 3 core plays. I still love TJ Moore in this spot against Duke. Like I mentioned, it's a pass funnel defense. Does not matter if it's Cade Klubnik or Chris Vezina, but I'm going to be perfectly happy playing any of them. Your GPP options. So the guys that I think got massive ceiling could go under-owned. I'll take Michael Trigg as one of them. Struggled last week, only 4 targets. They kept talking about on the broadcast how they want to get him 10 targets a game, yada, yada. When the ball does go to him, that man is dominant, and he carries people. He's huge. So I can see him getting into that 20-point range, specifically against the UCF team that they're probably going to end up just throwing the football against. So I would not shock me to see a 5 for 71 and 2 line. it would not be a surprise. And at 6,100, I'm willing to take those chances. Um, so yeah, I do think he's not a value per se, but the ceiling is there at 6,100, and I don't think people are going to end up playing him given the guys that are around him in that spot. GPP option number 2. Good bring back in that, or a good skinny stack with your Avery Johnson play. If you're playing Avery Johnson, I feel like you should play Jace Brown. Jace Brown is explosive as they get, can take any touch to the house, whether that's a carry or a reception. 20 points, well within the cards. And I don't think people end up wanting to play him just because of the Texas Tech defense. They should end up having to throw the football. I do like Brown. I will have a little exposure. Anytime he's going to be matched up, basically anytime I play Avery Johnson, it's going to be Jace Brown that's paired with him. Last guy that I think is the GPP play, and I think he's a great play. I'm very interested in this. I think most people end up on any number of people in this game. Probably the running backs the most. I'll go to Coy Eakin at 4,500. Yes, everybody kind of got spooked by that 0 catch game. It doesn't bother me one bit. 5 catches, 10 catches. Otherwise, I very much so think you can easily see this 6, 139 and 1. He does play extremely well and work well with Bayron Morton. So my Bayron doubles are going to be Bayron with Jacoby Williams and Coy Eakin, getting a little bit different because of how good of a pass catcher Jacoby Williams is. Y'all know I like my quarterback, running back, wide receiver combos in these spots. 2 injury items to keep an eye on. 4K Cam Ross. He would be my preferred option. I know Trell Harris is there. I like Trell Harris. I prefer the target volume that Cam Ross will get. He's probable this week, so I will have interest in Cam Ross, but I don't hate the Trell Harris, Cam Ross. Either one of them are fine if you're going the UVA route. Arizona State-wise, with Jordan Tyson out, I think it opens value with Malik McClain. Like I said, I don't trust Jeff Sims. Don't get me wrong. I don't trust Jeff Sims. But when you have like last week, I would need to see how much of this came with Levitt versus how much of it came with Sims. But 7 for 159 is kind of hard to ignore, especially when you consider that Iowa State has just been so bad on the back end. So I have minimal interest there. I do like Jaron Hamilton, Meyer, and I 100% agree with you. He missed some open opportunities. He's a worthy punt play. Very much so. Malik McClain, fine punt. Jaron Hamilton, fine punt. I just have one more guy that we're going to end up talking about. That's probably my favorite punt, we'll say. If I'm going to punt the 3K, I got a guy. So I'm also going to talk about another guy at 3,200 that I don't mind. He was in here until I switched to another guy, but we're going to talk about both of them anyway. Jeremiah Smith always enters your pool. I just don't think the ceiling's there. I think Chris Bell is a better play, and it's not close. We haven't seen it. And I don't think it's because they don't need it. Realistically, Penn State is going to maybe score 10 points. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I agree. I'm not touching Jeff Sims. Jeff Sims, that's one of the Bible verses, man. Nobody played Jeff Sims. Nobody played Cam Fancher. They're on the list. They are on the list. I would prefer to pay down from Smith down to Surratt or Bell. I prefer Bell this week. I will have Surratt. The yardage was just gone last week. It was just a bad script. It just didn't fit overall. Now, could it go bad again? Yes, 100%. But I'm invested, and I'm going to stay invested in Surratt. I think Bell and Surratt are great plays. Now, you want to talk about a guy that I think is going to end up being overowned in this spot? Carnell Tate. I can't trust it. I know compared to the ownership, will I play some Carnell Tate? Sure. If I'm at 5,600 or 5,700 in that range, and I just don't want to play some of the other guys around him, I'll play some Carnell Tate just to get some exposure because he does have 100 plus and multiple score upside. It's just the floor is barren. And it's a legitimate possibility that it just goes to the running backs or it goes to Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah Smith's been quiet, man. So Myron, Rocco Becht is an opportunistic runner if he needs to be. If the game is tight, he will run. But he's not going to run a lot. I watched way too much Iowa State. No. Rocco's not a planned run guy. He will in short yardage to pick up a yard here or there, but they're going to try to just hand the football off to Abu Sama and Carson Hansen, more so Carson Hansen than Abu Sama. And they will sprinkle in they're just going to slow the game down. It's not an uber concentrated offense for Rocco like Houston is. And Wiegman's a better runner on designed run plays, whereas Rocco's more of a off-script runner. And he's not an athlete runner, I will say. I'm a big Rocco guy, but that's just kind of his style. All right. In the player pool, you got to have him. He's an alpha. If you're going to play Mensa, you got to play Barkate for me. He gets a ton of target volume. I'd be shocked if he's not in the 7 to 8 catch range in this one again. 17 to 20 points, well within play. He's still finding the end zone. He's getting 100-yard games. I'm in on Barkate. Y'all know that. I've been on Barkate all year. So it's no surprise that I'm in on Barkate. I like Klubnik. I'm playing a lot of doubles this week. So Klubnik doubles. Antonio Williams is going to be involved to an extent. I think he probably could lead the team in targets. He's going to get a ton of touches. So him and TJ Moore. I just prefer Moore in this spot. I think the ceiling's better on Moore. But Williams is going to get plenty of it from me. He's going to be involved in my doubles. No issues there. Similar story, Malachi Toney, my favorite one. But if I'm playing Beck, I'm playing doubles. And I'm playing CJ Daniels as my double. So I'm playing Beck, Toney, and Daniels. So I will tell you right now that a lot of my teams that I have built today, basically every single one that I've built today, start out like this. Now, I will share, I've built a ton of variations. Yep. See, well, yeah, he didn't. Yeah, he's not. He's not. He is Cooper Kupp. Is what he is. He's Cooper Kupp. Kid's a stud. Very good player. Be interested to see how he does going forward. Josh Cameron, 5,800. Y'all know I'm never going to not play this. I'm interested. I know this game's in there. I just got to wait for him to do it, and I'm not going to miss out on it. So there's a 38-pointer in this sucker. If I'm playing Sawyer Robertson, you know I'm playing Josh Cameron normally. So I can't help it. I can't help it. I'm tied to that ship, and I'll go down with it. Dang it. I just can't help it. Speaking of that Georgia World's Largest Cocktail Party game, I can't get enough of Zach Branch. He's getting so much target volume. The exciting whites, man. He might end up being on the all-white team next year in the NFL. Cooper DeJean, Cooper Kupp, Cooper Barkate. We're getting all the Coopers. Where's Cooper Manning when you need him? So Zach Branch getting a ton of targets in this spot now without Colby Young. Do more targets flow through Zach Branch? We haven't seen the explosive Zach Branch that I expect. I feel like he's just waiting to pop a 70-yard touchdown. And when he does, it's going to be a 100-plus yard game, and it's going to be like a 30-point outing. So I have got to get Zach Branch. I know it's coming. I just don't know when it's going to hit. But I do love Zach Branch, and at 4K, I have a hard time ignoring him at this price tag. One of the best points per dollar plays on the slate, right behind TJ Moore for me. I do like him. He's just nervy for me, but I will have exposure. He's definitely a great play at 4K. All right, two more Duke guys that I'm trying to figure out. Barcate's a lock. I haven't quite decided which one I prefer. So there's Quayshawn Brown at 3.9. Don't hate it. He gets the second most amount of targets, second most catches. You would say he should be the second option. And at 3.9, very good play. I love the double stack. The problem is, and I haven't decided. I had this guy in originally. I had Samir Hagens in first. And then I was kind of bantering about with Quayshawn Brown. Hagens has done a good job of getting touchdowns. The target volume's not quite there. He averages probably a target or two less per game than Quayshawn Brown. He's less explosive with the targets. I don't know. I think you got to make a decision. It's either Quayshawn Brown or Samir Hagens. You got to take one or the other as your secondary double in this spot. I'm leaning Brown because I don't want to buy into the touchdowns being the differentiator. So I'm leaning Brown right now, but I don't mind the Hagens idea. All right. Last two guys in our pool. For target volume alone, I've got to have Lewis Bond in there. They're going to get blown out against Notre Dame, but that's nothing new to this team. I mean, look at this. I think there's about a 0.0% chance that Bill O'Brien survives the season. If I can get 5 to 7 catches, which is highly likely because he has 5 or more catches in every game this season except for the Pitt game, then Lewis Bond's going to do well. He's had double-digit points in all of them. And if he just somehow falls into the end zone, I'm getting 15. So I'm going to have a hard time ignoring this. I am interested at 4,200. It really comes down to if I'm sub 4,500, I can't go Eakin at that point. I prefer Eakin. It comes down to would I prefer Zach Branch, Lewis Bond, and Cam Ross. Who's my preference in there? Probably lean Branch, but I think Bond needs to be in consideration. I just wanted to talk about him because of the target volume that he's going to see. Final guy in the pool, and this man is a punt of an all punt play. Tristan Smith at 3K. That's my punt. So he's taken over the Bryant Wesco spot. He's not Bryant Wesco, but he is 6'4", and that man's a big old boy. So in his first set of game action, he had, 4 targets, 51 yards, and a touchdown at 3K. I get a Clemson guy for Stone Men facing a pass funnel defense. And if you give me my guy, Cade Klubnik back, good gravy. You give me a 6'4" guy on the outside with Tristan Smith, golly. All right, I'm in. Color me in. Let me see what the projection is on him because I did not put him in. I typed him in. What the world? Oh, I have it filtered to the Friday night slate or the Thursday. No, it's Friday slate. Sorry, I was building other teams. Tristan Smith, 7.1. Got him for just north of 2 catches, almost 30 yards, and 33% chance for a touchdown-ish. So, but even then, I'm going to buy that. You give me a Clemson guy like that at that price tag, I'm going to have a very hard time ignoring that individual. So, popular things for me, like we mentioned, I'm going to have some a little bit of exposure to the cocktail party, but I think Indiana, Miami, Like Miami, this is going to be my popular build. And then it's going to be like Sawyer. I do have a Sawyer Robertson with Trigg and Cameron, with Miles Montgomery. I've got Mensa doubles in here with Barkate and either Quayshawn and Hagens. I've got Clemson with the double there. And then you just work in what running backs you can. You figure it out from that point. And that's kind of how I've got Avery Johnson singles here. I got Morton doubles. So like just work those guys in with this baseline, and then I'm going to kind of work around it and then do Baylor doubles with Mensa doubles, or I'm going to do Texas Tech doubles with Mensa, and then just work everybody together. And that's kind of how I'm building my 20 max teams this week, is going to be just ultimate double stacks, mainly Clemson with everybody, Mensa with everybody, and Beck with everybody as my top 3 double stacks. Bayron probably coming in at 4th for me. And then I'm working some Indiana into those as well. Mainly the Indiana guys is going to be Mendoza, Surratt, and Hemby, because I think Hemby is a good pass catcher, so he can catch a touchdown. They might end up getting him a rushing and a passing touchdown, and then Surratt maybe catches 2 off the bounce back from last week. So I do like that, and I'm going to play some of that, and it's no issue to get that stuff in. So that's kind of what I'm playing this week on DK. We'll do all the building on Saturday morning. As far as the high dollar stuff, I'm going to try to get my single, my lower entry, my 20 max stuff done it's between today and tomorrow morning. And then I'm trying to work through and figure out my FanDuel stuff. I'm trying to minimize that pool, although I like a good bit of the stacks in that set. So I will tell you, FanDuel, I'm basically playing stacks, but I'm going to make a player pool for you that's just like optimal, like the best plays. But most of what I'm going to play is literally double stacks. It's going to be a double stack and a single. A double stack and a single is going to be every single team I built on FanDuel this week, because I lied. Because some of the higher end quarterback plays I don't want to play stacked, but they're the only guys that I'm not playing stacked. I'm stacking everybody else. So at least 1, if not 2 in most of those teams. All right. So I'll be back tomorrow going over the FanDuel stuff. I got to get that piece together, and I will be live on Saturday talking the live before lock, going over the injury news and notes, building my high $8 teams. So good luck on your Thursday slate stuff tonight, and good luck on your NFL stuff if you're playing Showdown tonight. I'm going Derrick Henry. I'm kind of going Ravens onslaught in that, but maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. We'll see. So we'll have a lucky evening. Good luck today, guys.